3. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another YouTube of Mediation and Beyond. And today I'm super excited to have a new friend and colleague, Rebecca Kaufman. And Rebecca is the principal of Pearl Mediation Group. That's P-E-A-R-L Mediation Group, which she founded in 2016. She's a graduate of New York Law School and a certified divorce mediator and parent advocate. This is why I asked her to be on here, specializing in families of children with special needs, such as autism spectrum disorder, which is, I think, an area we just don't talk about special needs and divorce. And so this will be really exciting today. She's well versed in both family and special education law, and Rebecca has helped clients successfully negotiate divorce, complex parenting plans, and the special education system. So that's just what a great asset. She has earned a reputation as a trusted advisor and champion for those facing unexpected challenges in divorce and just in life in general there. Professional problem solver, I love that. Seasoned negotiator, life strategist. Rebecca strives to empower her clients to own their outcomes with innovative solutions and expertly crafted agreements that serve as a roadmap for life's decisions. She serves on the board of directors of Marble Jam Kids, a nonprofit providing support to neurodiverse populations through the creative arts. I want to hear a little bit about that. And Rebecca lives in Bergen County, New Jersey, neighboring Connecticut here, but works with clients from across the country through her online practice. She services include divorce, mediation, divorce coaching, and special education parent advocacy. If you want to set up your own strategy session with Rebecca, you can visit her website at Pearl, P-E-A-R-L, mediation.com, where you'll find additional information about her services, and you can link her email directly, to her email directly. And you will also find her information in the description at the end of our online YouTube. So you'll be able to find her information there. So thanks so much for coming on, Rebecca. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Colleen. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Yes. And, we talked the other day just to kind of get to know each other a little bit. And, we overlap with the divorce coaching, the mediation, but I'm a former teacher. I get the whole education curriculum. And as I said to you too, I know in the parenting classes, that's one of the areas which is underserved and not really talked about, which is that when you have special needs going through divorce, I mean, special needs married is one thing, and you're in the family, and that's a stressor right there anyways. But when you're going through the whole divorce process, so what got you involved in this area, this line of work?
Sure. Well, like so many of us in this field, personal experience. I have 2 boys, and my older son has high functioning autism. And, it's a whole other layer of issues and a whole other area where even people who usually really do their homework and are well researched, you just don't know the process until you're actually in it. There's really no roadmap for it. And I always felt like there was help out there for so many different things in life with regard to your kids. I mean, if you're looking for a summer camp or writing a college essay, there's somebody to call. And yet here we are with such a large issue, which is the broad range of special education issues. And nobody really tells you what to do. Nobody says what to look for, what clinician to go to, what is early intervention? What does it mean to have your child evaluated? Is that something you're asking for or the school is suggesting? And where do you even go from there? How do you get services? What should those services look like? It's a whole other path where there's, like I said, just no roadmap. So that's what I try to help parents navigate. Similar to when we're talking about divorce, that's what we're doing also. We're trying to get you familiar with the process and come up with a plan that's going to work for the whole family.
Well, I also think, you're bringing that up. It's not only a roadmap, but who's going to pay for that roadmap? What services are free? What are not free?
Exactly.
Who's, if you have 2 parents who don't agree on the roadmap, which I used to see as a teacher, Some parents think my child needs medication. The other parent says, no, I don't. And that's in just say a married, they're arguing. It gets escalated when you have divorce to get sometimes two parents on the same page. I mean, I'm seeing it now with even COVID. Yes, I want my children vaccinated. No, we're not getting them vaccinated. Like it's so getting them on the same page. Is that something that you have found has been a challenge? And who pays for it kind of thing, and what
I
services?
think, as you said, even when you're dealing with a family that's not going through a separation or divorce,
Yeah.
getting parents on the same page in terms of accepting and recognizing an issue and determining what to do or not do to support those needs, it's a major struggle. And it's a conversation that really just comes up again and again. So if I were, say, doing parent advocacy with a family that was just specifically dealing with their child's issues,
Mhm.
we would come up with some sort of special education family plan and determine, how we needed to assess the situation, what needs exist, how to best serve them, whether we're talking about evaluations and accommodations in school, whether they should be going to a different school, is an out of district placement a question, what kind of clinicians are involved, what kind of support for the whole family. There is a matter of putting a team together. So you might be interested in having a special needs financial analyst. Maybe you need an insurance advocate. I didn't know these things existed before I went through this process personally. And
Right.
then when you're talking about divorce and you go into mediation, really your end result is an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, as you know, which hopefully will then lead to your settlement agreement.
Yep.
And we can put the family plan for special education right into the MOU so that it's all part of, this is how we're going to organize things going forward so that everybody can transition and look forward to something in a positive way.
And what happens in divorce where you've created a parenting plan, but the parents aren't on the same page with the special education plan? And so how does that work? Because not everybody's going to be happy divorced moving forward in that. So what do you do with something like that? How does someone navigate that?
I think just like any issue where the parties don't seem to be able to come together, very often everything is heightened by emotion, right? So being that third party who's able to take a step back from that and see what each person's interests are, what they feel most strongly about, and find some sort of creative solution, because perhaps there's something that exists that really would make everyone comfortable, but they're just not focused on that because everyone's feeling a little bit in their corners about things.
Okay. And so are you able to advocate, just so people know when they're listening and watching this, are you able to advocate, whether divorced or not, irrelevant, but are you able to advocate with the school systems, with the family, helping with the IEP plans, PPE? Are you able to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that that's an important piece of it, because very often parents will go into a meeting with a child study team, maybe for the first time, maybe without a clear idea of how the whole process works. And honestly, you're usually, it used to be in person sitting at a conference table. Lately it's on Zoom, but you're sitting at that conference table with maybe as many as 10 professionals on the other side in all of their related fields of specialty, and the head of your team. And it's just you. And they tend to not really give you all the information and lay it out for you. And when you go in there and you have an advocate with you who kind of knows the right questions to ask, or gives you some ideas about, where you're headed, what questions to ask, it gives you a different kind of confidence going into that situation. Because I've seen situations where even I mean, absolutely brilliant professionals who in
Right.
their own field are completely in charge, you put them in a situation like this, they don't have all the information. And you
Mhm.
can't make good decisions without all the information. So to be able to arm those parents with what they need to go into that meeting and successfully know, here's what areas need to be evaluated so we can peel back the layers of that onion and really see what the strengths and weaknesses are of this child so we know what's going to help them, and understanding within the school system how it all works, what you're entitled to, what your rights are under the law, because everybody has a story, but just like in any other area where the law is a piece of it, your story is only a piece of it. Everyone's a human being and you want to tell your story, but what the law requires is really what at the end of the day is going to make the decisions. And most parents don't know you're entitled to an evaluation. If that isn't satisfactory for whatever reason, you're entitled to a second independent evaluation by an independent evaluator, and this is still at the district's expense. Things like that, that parents might just need to know to be able to properly advocate for their child.
And when you go in as an advocate, so people know, Rebecca, are you going in as a parent advocate, or are you going in as the parent's attorney? Is that one and the same? Or are those two different roles?
I'm not going in as an attorney. I'm just a parent advocate.
Okay.
And I've found that actually lends itself to a more positive tone sometimes.
Amen. No one wants an attorney in the room. Everyone clams up.
Because really, I'm there for that child.
Yeah.
So that might mean different things in different situations. And I am, not there to have everybody posture and take sides on something. Yep. Because theoretically, it's a team for a reason. We're all supposed to be working collaboratively to make happen whatever is best for that child.
And how do people, I would imagine, and I've only had, in all my years, I've only had one case where the special needs challenge has come up, and it wasn't really in the divorce itself. They had, in Connecticut, you have to take your parenting classes. I'm not sure if that's in New Jersey too, probably. But so they went to separate parenting classes in separate places, separate communities, and they both came away independent back to me. There was nothing in their parenting classes that had anything to do with special needs. And so I thought, wow, is that just an oversight with those two? But the more I did my research, it's not really spoken about. And I think that's such a big issue on a lot of levels. Dealing with the children's anxiety can be and I'm not saying that's special needs, but it is a special case when you have children who need extra supports, and to not even talk about it in the parenting classes that we're sending them to, I think is a slap in the face for these parents.
I couldn't agree more.
Do you find that have you heard that feedback at all from parents in New Jersey?
And I feel that we're really we're a few steps behind in everything. I feel like these days people do talk about autism now, but we don't talk about other related issues very much. And we're only just now starting to really talk about autism in any kind of a detailed way. Every child is so unique, and maybe it is anxiety, as you said. That is a diagnosable condition. There are different forms of anxiety that can really impact the child's learning. There's everything from speech and language issues to sensory issues.
Yeah.
Even within autism, there are so many, it's a spectrum for a reason, right? So there are so many different variations.
Yeah.
One example of something that comes up a lot is I hear a lot of parents who have a child with high functioning autism, and the school tells them, oh, your child is getting straight A's, or your child has a great learning aptitude, so everything is fine. And they're not trying to do anything wrong, but they're not clinicians, so they don't understand that perhaps the child has a very high intellectual aptitude and then has deficits in another area.
Sure.
And you need to do a neuropsychological evaluation to find that out, and then figure out what supports are going to be best. And that child doesn't fit neatly into a box. So it's tricky because sometimes even more severe issues can be handled better by the system because the system by now knows what to do in that situation.
Right.
But when it's something a little more nuanced, you really have to do your homework to figure out what's available, what's going to be effective, and what's worth your time, what's worth your money, and then often educate the school about it.
Yeah, as a former teacher, I mean, you can have high functioning child, right?
Hmm.
But they don't have any friends.
Right.
And so that social emotional piece,
Hmm.
because if all you're looking at is that academic piece, so they're the kid that's really thriving, right? Nothing wrong with here, except they're at the lunch table by themselves 5 days a week, and no one's talking to them, or all those other nuances. I think that because the criteria isn't just the academic, but a lot of times when I would remember going to these meetings, that was the main, the grades.
Hmm.
Are they handing in assignments?
Right.
Are they acting out? No, but they might be lonely,
Hmm.
right? So I think that is another piece that can be overlooked.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to turn our kids into people, right? Wonderful, responsible members of their community.
Yeah.
And if they can, memorize something, read something, learn, and get straight A's,
Yeah.
that's great. Does that mean that they're able to function in terms of executive functioning skills on a daily basis and take care of themselves and be independent? That's a whole other story. And
Yeah.
it's all tied together. So it's not just what teachers see in school, it's also what's going on at home. And again, divorce can be a part of that, having to do with anxiety and depression and all of those issues. And if things at home are not okay, then
Yeah.
even if good grades are happening, it's impacting that child and probably impacting that child's education.
Well, I always say, like, it doesn't matter. Your child could be uh, within the norm. Your child could be advanced. Your child could have special. Divorce impacts everybody in that house. I don't care what your issue is. Like, but I think one of the concerns I've heard from parents, especially of special needs, is that when they go to the ex's house, the anxiety for some of these parents goes through the roof, because what if they don't give him the medicine on time? What if they don't do this? What, he needs this or she needs that, and it's not happening. And I think one of the things I've tried to share with parents is, like, you got to take care of yourself, like, because you can't control what goes on in, there's only so much you can control. And I guess that's really why you need the divorce piece of this equation, is to support that child in all areas of their life. And that would include separate homes, right? And help the parents educate themselves.
Definitely. I mean, even in a situation where it's not a high conflict divorce, if parents have shared custody, there are major transitions going on that are a big deal for that child. And if you're talking about a child with autism, not having consistency is about the biggest problem you can throw at them. So it's really very relevant. And to your point about not having control over things, I mean, that's really it. There are things in life that just we don't have control over. And all we can do is control what we do. So figuring out how to properly plan for the parts that we can control, that's how we regain that power.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what you're doing is taking what I think is one of the benefits when you have an education background and you're working. So you have, the two of us here, when you have that education component of divorce, because I think parents just look at the parenting plan as but you have to understand that child's job is to go to school. Our job is to go to our jobs. And when your life's in disarray a little bit, or with the divorce, and it takes a hit, it also takes a hit for the child educationally. That's their job. And so to not realize that, I think parents get stuck on the parenting plan and who has the holiday, but you got to look at the educational component. And then if you take a child with special needs or challenges, uh, that's important to take into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, family law is all about best interest of the child when there is a child involved. So that means sometimes we have to put aside our own he said, she said, mine, yours of everything,
Yeah.
because what your child may need, especially if it's a child with special needs or special education needs, what that child needs, what the routine needs to look like, where they are, what they're doing when they're there, the structure of all of that. It may not be what the parent envisioned as being fair or what they want. But if they really care about the child, then what matters most is this really what's best for this kid? Is this going to help he or she get up and go to school every day, feel confident, make friends, do well, learn everything that they need to learn? And we sometimes have to put our own preconceived notions aside to come up with a plan that's really going to service that.
Yeah, and I think that is the bottom line, is the best interest of the child for our family.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because that's not it. I always think that's not generic. Like, it's not like one size fits all. Best interest of each child or each family, because I don't know any families that are the exact same replica of each other. So
Mm-hmm.
either can your parenting plan, either can your IEP, right? Any of these things, even can a teacher approach it. That's like saying a teacher is going to approach all her students or his students the exact same, which is ridiculous because they're so individualized.
Absolutely. The whole thing has to be individualized.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you have two kids, one has some special needs, one doesn't.
Yeah.
Maybe they shouldn't always be in the same home at the same time together. Maybe you do a little bit of sharing so they get a little space from each other because their needs are different.
Mm-hmm.
If one parent is more do your homework and the other parent is let's go have fun, maybe that affects how you schedule the week. And maybe the parent who's a little more on top of school things should be spending time with that child, say on Sunday night, getting them ready for the week ahead. There are so many different variations, but again, it just depends what's going to work for the whole family.
Right. And that's why that parenting piece is so important, and to come together, whether you're married or not, because not all married people come together on the same page, but they just may not be divorced. Right. So the parent advocacy piece, I could see how that could be so helpful with making school so much less challenging, easier. Do you find that the school systems are receptive to what you're adding to the conversation?
I think so. And I think, again, that goes a little bit to the advocate as opposed to attorney role.
Yeah.
There are certainly situations where you need an education attorney. And if we get to that point and something needs to be filed, then I will refer my clients to a handful of wonderful education attorneys that I work with frequently.
Right.
But up until that point, which is really at least 90% of the time, you're having a conversation and you're there to provide information and just be a support. And what you're doing is of benefit to both the parents and the school, because you're almost acting as a translator sometimes.
Yeah.
It can absolutely help the process along.
Yeah, because the parents don't know what to ask. And they also don't understand some of the languaging, because you get into these meetings sometimes and it has its own language like any other profession. Right. And so not all the time do the parents understand the languaging of what's being thrown back and forth, where that would be really helpful to have someone like such as yourself in there advocating on behalf of the parents, on behalf of the child, explaining things in the real time, right, in the moment.
And it really depends upon the district and the situation with the child, because sometimes you are, helping advocate for a child, for a family, because the district isn't giving that family what they're entitled to and what their child needs. And you need to fight for them. But sometimes, it's very emotional and we get all heated up, just like we do with divorce. We get very heated up when it's our children, right?
Yeah.
So families can go in and get so absorbed in, I'm not getting what I should be getting. My child needs to get more services. How do we fight this? How do we get more services? And what they aren't following is the process of how you get more services, what's required, whether you meet those requirements or not. And maybe if you don't, there's a reason and there's something different that you need. That's what's actually going to help you. or, what are the actual accommodations that are going to go into an IEP? Not just, I want that IEP, but
Right.
why do you want it? What specific ideas are we going to put in there that are really on a day-to-day basis going to make a difference? Because we can get very caught up in fight and forget the details and the nuances of what we're fighting for. And that's really the most important thing, is whether or not it's going to help.
Yeah, and I also think, and for having the parents in there, what goes on in that home life may be very different than what's going on in school. Like a child at home can be very different about, you may see two different kids sometimes. And so all of that information is so valuable for an IEP to sit there and do what's best for that child, not only in school, but to help support them in their home lives as well. Right,
Mhm.
that holistic approach.
Now you're talking about my child. Because
School,
I have a child who has a very hefty IEP,
yep,
getting some pretty serious services, but yet I have had teachers go to the case manager on the child study team and say, I know it's private and all, but why does this child have an IEP? I haven't seen anything going, what's going on? And there's more to it.
yeah, you're like, come to my house. I hear you. Well, I love what you're doing, and I think it's so valuable, whether or not you're divorced, but it can also be extremely valuable when you're divorced, just being able to get in there and help families with challenges that don't get talked about enough, right? They don't, and so I I think your services are so needed, and my goal is here talking with you today is to uh, showcase what you're doing, because it's so necessary, especially even all those kids come in COVID and how I mean, I can't even imagine the challenges, which again weren't really spoken about. Through no one's fault. I mean, COVID was an extreme thing, but I'm just saying, like, the challenges that kids with IEPs who aren't in school because the school shut down, that must be so challenging for families. I can't even imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And if you were to look around at schools and see what programs they're doing to handle COVID, which ones are hybrid, which ones are all virtual, you would find that if you looked at therapeutic schools, for example, they pretty quickly ramped up to in-person education as quickly as they could and put in place whatever they had to make that safe. Because for that population, the level of crisis, if their child isn't in a routine, if their child isn't in school, is a whole other level. And
Yeah.
it presented all these unexpected challenges and has been difficult for every person who's involved in education in any way. And the schools are trying to come up with solutions. It's been so rough on teachers, but also for those families that have kids with special needs. I mean, I think there was a panic initially, really, and we all had to settle into, okay, what are the solutions? What programs can we seek out? What can we do in terms of compensatory services? Because we can't let those kids fall through the cracks.
No, but I can imagine, because when children are in school, let's be honest, parents get a break, just in general, right? You just get a break in general, and I think that people have such a greater appreciation for teachers now, right? Although you should have always had an appreciation for us, but if you don't know how to handle your child's special needs when an extra 8 hours, 10 hours of your day that children are home when they normally weren't,
Sure.
and then you're trying to work,
Ooh,
I can only imagine what went on in some people's homes.
what a juggling act. And
Yes.
yeah, as parents, most of us, we're not professionals. We're
Yeah.
parents. We seek out the professionals when we need help.
Yep.
So then all of a sudden, that's all on us. So,
Yeah. Or the child that can't sit in front of Zoom,
mhm.
and do that because they need to move, and it's really, I think a whole population that I think sometimes when you're not involved in it, you don't think about it. So I'm glad to put a spotlight on this because I think it's so important. And if people want to reach out to you, again, it's at pearlmediation.com, and they can connect with you there, sign up there, or send you an email, I guess, and you'll get back to them.
Thank you so much for saying that. I really do appreciate it, because I tell my clients all the time, I do not have all the answers, but if I don't have an answer, I know where we can go look for them together.
Amen. Yeah, I agree. That's absolutely. I think that makes the best professional when you don't have all the answers, but you have great resources, right? And so I am going to add you to my list of great resources, because I think the amount of information and personal experience, which I think makes a huge difference, adds such an immense amount of value when you've gone through it yourself, whether that be divorce or special needs, whatever that, the education system, that you have the experience with it. And I love not going in as the attorney, going in as an advocate to do the best, create the best interest for the child and this family is so necessary. So thank you, Rebecca, for taking time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Colleen. It was great to talk with you.
Yeah, well, I will be back in touch for sure. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.